Welcome to another episode of the Risual Foundation podcast. In this session, we're talking about the Careers Club with our guest, Thom McKiernan. Hi, Thom.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. At one of our recent internal knowledge sharing events, Thom ran a session on the power of your external brand, talking particularly about LinkedIn, and he's kindly offered to jump on and chat to us about this from a Careers Club perspective. So for those of you that don't know, the aim of the Careers Club is to support individuals who've been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic back into work if they've lost their jobs. So Thom, just to begin with, do you want to introduce yourself and let us know why this topic is particularly important to you?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Thom McKiernan. I'm an enterprise architect here at risual. And I really like to take control of my own development and help advance my career and really make sure that I don't just get kind of stuck into a routine. I'm always looking for that new learning opportunity or that kind of extra kind of course or training session, or even just a news article about how you can help your own personal development. And part of the reason for that is kind of how I've moved on in my own career. So I've gone from being kind of a shift manager at McDonald's to working my way up to being in charge of some computers in a classroom at a school, to then doing a bit more training and then getting promoted in that job, kind of moving up and up and up as the years have gone by. Mm-hmm. And one of the particularly kind of interesting highlights of my career was when I got offered a job at LinkedIn in London. And the way I got that job, or at least got it, was about using my social networks. So I used a number of different things at the time, still do today, like LinkedIn, Foursquare, Twitter, now Instagram as well. I'm quite addicted to that. But something that I always was very conscious of was my digital identity, and what would look like if someone just Googled Thom McKiernan, what they'd kind of find and see come up with that. And it was because I had that kind of technical relevant information and blogs that I was doing, that someone who worked in the same town as me but worked for LinkedIn kind of picked up on stuff I was doing. And then when a job opportunity came up, they recommended me and I got the job. And then I learned even more about how important having that kind of digital brand is and how it can help you in your career.
That's the best way of getting a job, because you've been approached because someone thinks you're right for it, rather than you having to be the one who's kind of pursuing that. That's a really great story. I have a quick question. What is Foursquare?
Oh, so Foursquare was it's a bit like on Facebook, how you can check into different places to say, oh, I'm at the cinema and I'm watching this film, or I'm at Bedford train station, which is kind of near where I used to get the train to London. And it's been rebranded now as Swarm, and Foursquare is the review bit, Swarm's the kind of check-in app, but it's not very on trend now to use either of them, so people don't tend to do it much anymore. But at the time I became like the mayor of the train station, which was one of the features, and I knocked off this other person who was the mayor, and that was the person that worked at LinkedIn. So that's how we kind of first made that connection, through a bit of kind of taunting of each other on Foursquare and Twitter.
Amazing. That just shows you though how your network can move and change depending on like what platform you're on. Well, that wasn't a pun, there was no pun intended there. But depending on who it is you're interacting with in lots of different ways. I mean, the fact that I didn't know what Foursquare was probably shows you how much I use social media. So I know that I do have a LinkedIn profile, but I don't use it that much. So what kind of tips would you give to someone like me who's kind of not very active on there at the moment?
Okay. Well, LinkedIn is a really good place to showcase that personal brand of yourself. So at the moment, I'd say the social networks I use most will be Twitter, and I'd use that for just saying anything that I find interesting. And it's kind of a mix of personal, but it's really much more heavier towards kind of interesting technical stuff. So if my family find me on Twitter, they're like, oh, I won't bother following Thom because it's all like techie stuff and it's not kind of interesting. And then Instagram, I'd say, is quite a blend, kind of 50-50. kind of telling people about what I'm doing and my kind of daily kind of stuff that might be interesting to people, might not be, but it's interesting to me. And LinkedIn is where I will kind of post and share and make connections with other people that I meet through work, or we have kind of similar interests and topics, and we might find each other on Twitter or from a blog website, but then make a connection on LinkedIn to do that bit of networking. And at the moment, when kind of a lot of things are locked down, there's not that much opportunity to meet face to face. It's become really important to have that kind of expanded network where you can still talk to people about things and chat about news stories and news articles in a place that's got that kind of theme about it being for your career and for your development, rather than what you just saw on TV last night, or a good movie you've seen or something like that. So that's kind of one of the kind of elements of why LinkedIn is important. It's about kind of nurturing and using those connections to kind of expand your own network and find things that interest you, and maybe even kind of you might see a job posting that's particularly relevant to you because one of your connections has made it. And like you just said earlier, it's great if you can get that kind of referral because someone's already vouching for you in the first place. So that's a really nice thing. But if you're kind of not currently working and you're looking for a career, then LinkedIn can really help boost your presence online, especially as now we hear of, a common step for any kind of HR person would be just looking at that person online, seeing what comes up, to see what they can find out about them. And, hopefully it's all good and you've got a positive message out there. And one of the first things that will come up is your LinkedIn profile if you've kind of made it out there in public. Now, a reason recruiters go and look at LinkedIn is because it's got almost 700 million members on it, and they can really target the kind of people and skills that they want to find for their jobs that they've got to fill. And a bonus of LinkedIn for recruiters is that kind of 70% of the people on there aren't looking for work. So they know that there's all this whole pool of talent they can look at, might not necessarily be thinking about changing their career, but the right kind of person or the right timed job posting can open up that kind of market to all those passive people who are kind of quite happy and just getting on with their day job. So now I'm going to ask you what you would rate your own. Well, first of all, do you have a LinkedIn profile?
I do, yeah.
And what would you rate it out of 10?
Golly, I would probably rate it at maybe 5 maximum, because I've never put a lot of time into it. It's never been something that's been particularly important. I've always had it. I've just never really put that much effort into it. I think because I've only ever really worked at Risual, so I've never had to.
Yeah, and I think that's quite common for lots of people. They'll think, I think I'll have a LinkedIn profile because it might come in handy, and lots of people have got it. So they'll go in, they'll go through the kind of initial wizard, and they will kind of fill out the bits that they need. I think when I first started using it, it was just because it was an easy place to kind of have my CV and all of those dates of when you started school and then left and went to college and when your first job and second job was. It's difficult to remember unless you've got a saved copy of your CV kind of lying around somewhere and keep that up to date. Whereas now I can keep my LinkedIn profile up to date, and then whenever I have to update my CV, I just go to LinkedIn and I'll copy the information off that, and it's really makes applying for jobs much quicker because I've got all of that information kind of already in a nice format that I know is the kind of latest version of what's out there.
That's a good idea.
But then, so people kind of do that, get that all set up, and then they might kind of leave it and forget about it. And that's where really that does you a disservice, because LinkedIn, just like kind of Google and Microsoft Bing, have these search algorithms that will rank your profile against everyone else's. So even if someone was looking for, if I had my profile on there, I wanted it to be found and someone was searching for like cloud architect in the UK, I might not come up if I'm not really active on LinkedIn, or I might be kind of on the third or fourth page along, which is, I'm sure, you never click onto that second page of Google results, do you? You just try something else again. So I've got a few tips of what you can do to help give you that kind of all-star profile and make your profile more likely to get viewed. And the more views you get, then the more connections you can make, and the more that a recruiter, even if they're not kind of actively looking for you, if you've applied for a job and they're going on LinkedIn to kind of do a bit of a snoop and a check on you, then you know that you've got that great kind of front shop window that's showing you off to the best that you want to be portrayed as.
Yeah.
So my first tip is really just to not be that kind of default settings approach where you've just kind of clicked through the wizard. LinkedIn's quite good at its kind of sign-on page now, and it guides you through a lot of steps and stages. But at the time you're going through it, you might not have the time to actually do that, so you'll just kind of click skip, and get through it to just do the bits you need. So I'd recommend setting a bit of time aside, just like 30 minutes, and think, right, I'm going to go through my LinkedIn profile, I'm going to dust it all off, I'm going to make sure it's all up to date, and I'm going to make sure that it doesn't just look like a generic kind of bots filled it out. And the first piece you start with on that would be your name. So that sounds like a bit of a silly thing to say, but sometimes, and especially if people are kind of looking for work and want to be seen and want to be noticed, they'll put Thom McKiernan, currently available for work, in the headline. But in search algorithm doesn't like that. It knows it's not a name, and it thinks it's a bit kind of spammy, and people aren't using the platform properly. So that will be like a bad point on your ranking for a search. So just put in your normal name, what you want to be called, what you're known as to people. Put that in there in your name box. Now, what you can then put under your name is your headline. And the reason that's important is because, again, it's shown on that first search page where it might be you amongst kind of 10, 15, 20 other people. So by default, it shows your kind of current position and your current job role. So if you're in between jobs at the moment, then that might not be particularly relevant, but also they can kind of find that out anyway by clicking on your profile. And this is it's called a headline because it's that piece that's going to grab people's attention. And the tricky bit is not trying to use buzzwords. So like IT rockstar ninja would be a kind of a classic kind of buzzword filled one that doesn't really mean anything to anyone. And it's used kind of lots and lots, so it doesn't actually stand out. It just feels a bit generic. So try and give yourself a headline that kind of reflects a bit about who you are. It's a bit unique, but it's just that kind of short, snappy sentence that says about kind of what you either enjoy about your work or what you would be, what your kind of aspirations are for your career. And another thing in that kind of initial first setup bit is setting up your custom URL. So when you first sign in to LinkedIn, you get, it'll be like linkedin.com/UK/ and then a random number, and your name might be in there somewhere, but it's just like your generic URL. So what you can do is just tweak that in the settings to be something that you can actually remember. So for me, I've got, for anything I do online, I put the same username for it because I want, if people search for my username, then they'll come up and they'll find kind of all those links and they'll find all my different profiles, and it's easy to remember. So I can just say, right, yeah, on Facebook it's /Thom Merk, on Instagram it's /Thom Merk, on Twitter it's /Thom Merk, on LinkedIn it's /Thom Merk, and that's really easy for me to remember. But what's also good is that you can start adding it to things like some job recruitment websites will have a space to put your LinkedIn URL, and you can even put it in your email signature as well, so people can kind of quickly click that link to get to your LinkedIn profile. So just customizing that, something that's relevant, shows that you've put a bit of thought into it, but also just makes it easier to remember than having to sign into LinkedIn, go to the right profile section to discover what your URL is.
Yeah, I think they're really good tips, because even from my perspective, I think I set my LinkedIn up when I was at school. Might be showing my age there. As part of like my university application process. They said, right, everybody should be on LinkedIn now, and you just had to go. You all got sent to the library one day to do it. And as you said, I probably would have been like, what is this? Skip, 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 skip. Like, I don't want to do this. And then also, so much time has passed since then that, you know, I was meant to get married this year. And if I haven't been on there and changed my name, then people might not know who they're actually searching for. Is that her? Is that somebody else? Who knows? And I know that we've got somebody at Risual who I don't think has gone around changing theirs yet. And you think like, oh, you know, it's that like added element of confusion, isn't it? About is this the right person? I don't know if I found the right person. So yeah, that's actually really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a good point. I haven't had to change my name yet, but yeah, it's that thing of people, you know, if they found you, they might only spend 5 minutes looking over that profile. So you really want it to be that big, like, oh, this is worth actually spending a bit more time reading, looking further. So there's a few other things you can do that help do that. And one of the biggest elements you can do is your photo. So if you haven't got a photo on LinkedIn, because maybe you're a bit embarrassed or you didn't have a good one kind of on your phone or on your computer when you're setting it up, then what I would say is your kind of number one thing to address sorting out your photo. So it can be a bit embarrassing kind of having a photo. So you might just perhaps upload one of you at a wedding or kind of an event where you got dressed up a bit. But they kind of really stand out as just being a bit kind of off, because it's not everyone has nice glossy kind of corporate photos that someone's taken of them. But similarly, if you're kind of wearing a full-on kind of suit and tie or kind of really formal kind of blazer or something like that, and that's not actually what you do in your job, then it just doesn't quite seem like a genuine representation of yourself. And that's the trick with your LinkedIn photo, is to have a balance between something that's formal or appropriate for the kind of job you want, but also one that reflects who you really are as a person. So I actually update mine quite a lot, because I think I'm using this platform, and if it doesn't kind of look like me or represent me, and then I'm meeting people who might have looked at it, it's just kind of give you that kind of jarring moment rather than it being a moment of familiarity. So mine's originally we're quite lucky and we get kind of nice photos taken of us. So I make sure that when we've kind of had our school photo day, as I call it, I'm wearing something that's kind of what I would wear if I was just going to see one of our clients. Then that's familiar. It's kind of business casual, I guess you describe kind of how we dress at Risual. But yeah, I think it's quite an accurate reflection of who I am and what I look like. Whereas if I was a gardener, I wouldn't be there with kind of a suit and tie on. I'd want it to be something that still looks professional, still looks like it's been taken on purpose kind of for that reason, but maybe, you know, I would just have it taken outside, so as to still be like a kind of a profile head and shoulders shot, but yeah, just reflecting exactly kind of who I am and what I want to do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I'm sure you've seen a few kind of weird photos on kind of profile pictures when you through it.
Yeah, I think there's a couple where either it's kind of someone's graduation photo, because everyone has photos in their cap and gown, don't they? And then so you think, oh, maybe they're just graduating, and then when you meet them, you're like, oh no, like that was obviously taken quite a few years ago. So that's always quite a shock. And as you say, I think it's just whether seeing that person for the first time face to face is kind of a familiar experience, or whether there's just that element of doubt that you're not quite sure whether it's them, and automatically there's already kind of a bit of an issue there, rather than it just feeling like something that should be really natural.
Yeah, in fact, my son's just started doing his apprenticeship he's doing, and so he decided, well, actually, now I'm starting to be in the workplace, actually I want a LinkedIn profile, and so I helped set him up, and we both just kind of took photos of each other. And with modern smartphones, it's really easy to get like a decent, good enough quality photo for LinkedIn. So just choose something with a nice kind of plain or natural background, focus it in on your head and shoulders, take that photo. I think we probably took about kind of 20 photos of each other, trying to look natural. Then pick that one to go and put it on your profile. So that's the kind of the easy bits, the bits that are going to grab your first attention, or they show up in those search results. I know if I'm looking for someone on LinkedIn and there's kind of 500 Tom Smiths, for example, I just kind of ignore, and it's just a natural thing that if it hasn't got a profile picture next to the search result, I just kind of ignore it and think, oh, that's not a real account, or someone hasn't set it up properly. Whereas if there's kind of 3 and they've got photos, it's really easy to find the person I'm talking about. When you're making a connection because you met them maybe at like a jobs fair, or kind of a place where you've had an interview and then you want to connect with someone kind of afterwards. People are busy, they've only got a couple of minutes to probably do that and make that connection. So if they get a list of blanks and can't quite figure out who it is, then they might put it to the side to do later and then never get around to doing it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But there's some a few more things you can do then once you've got those kind of basics of your LinkedIn profile together, and that's actually filling out things like your experience and your skills, and there's something that you can get kind of endorsements for and recommendations for as well. So something that's the same for writing a CV. You don't want to lie or present yourself in any way, because that's the kind of thing that might get you to the interview, but then you soon get kind of found out at the interview stage, or even if you got through and then they find out later, that could get you fired and you'll be back to square one. So you want this to be honest, and one way to help show that it's kind of real is to get someone to endorse you or recommend you. So if you've listed your skills out, that's quite easy, and you can ask loads of people to endorse you for that. So your skills could be, so for my job in IT, I'd say like I've got communication skills, I've got project management skills, I've got technical skills around all of the cloud technologies that I use. And then when I've gone to start a new job, or kind of thinking about getting a promotion or asking for something at work like that, or going for my annual review, I think my bosses are going to be looking at my LinkedIn profile as well. So I'll just go and post my LinkedIn URL on Twitter, and I'll ask on LinkedIn, and I'll probably put it on Facebook as well. And so I'd really appreciate if you can just go onto my profile, and any skills that you think, yeah, Tom has got those skills, you can click a little plus button next to them, and that shows up as an endorsement. So that's a really quick way that your kind of friends and family and colleagues can help you out to get a better profile. The other thing you can do is get actual proper recommendations, and that's something that you have to ask for through your connections. So when I've left work or left a place I'm working with, and I've got a good working relationship with someone, I might think, I bet they'd say something really nice about me if I kind of ask them. And so through LinkedIn, you just say request a recommendation, and then that person will get a little inbox notification, and it will say Tom's asked for a recommendation for when you worked with him at company X and he did this role. And if you've kind of forewarned them that this is coming and say, please, I'd really appreciate it, this isn't just kind of a spammy message, I really would like you to do it, then they can fill that out, just a short paragraph about why you're a good person to work with or to work for. And then you get that back, you can review it. If you like it, you can put it on your profile. If you don't like it, then you can just say, oh, thanks, and you don't have to put it on your profile if it doesn't quite give the message that you want. But that's quite a nice way, and it's quite surprising when I've asked for that, what people actually write about you. And it's stuff that I think, oh God, I never would have said that about myself, but now like someone's actually kind of recognized that in me and they've written it down, so I can put that, and you just click a button and it shows up on your LinkedIn profile, and you can show like the top 3 or 5 kind of recommendations, and you can change them and keep them fresh as you move on and do different things and get those recommendations there. And that's again all about having that, if someone's reading your profile, it's that extra bit of kind of proof that you're a good person and people enjoy working with you, and you really have got those skills that you're talking about. And the last bit I'd say is that once you've got your profile to a good place, then you want to start making connections. So I've been kind of working for about 20 years now, so I've got well over 500 connections. In fact, I think when I did last time I kind of talked about this, I went and had a check and I had about 800 connections, and I thought, well, that's maybe a bit too many connections, because I couldn't even remember some of the people, and it's quite easy to kind of make a connection and you think you're going to kind of have stuff in common, and then it just doesn't happen. So I had a bit of a cull and I dropped about 200 connections, but LinkedIn says the sweet spot's around 500 connections, which seems like a lot, but the whole kind of power behind LinkedIn is that passive network. So even though I'm not talking to all those 500 people, I can post a news article, or I can say a comment about what I've done today. Different people will see it at different times, and it kind of doesn't matter. It's just that kind of natural thing, as with any other social network. Some people see things, some people don't, and they can comment. You can start that conversation going, but you have to put some effort in there as well. So you think, especially if you're looking kind of to improve your career or to get a new job, you can go onto LinkedIn, see what other people are posting, look at other people in the company to work for or work in that industry, start commenting, chatting on their posts, and start to build up that network. And then they might reach out to you, or you can reach out to them and say, oh, it'd be great if we actually connected. And then you've got them there as your connection, and who knows where that may lead, and kind of what that big wide network could send your message out to. In fact, LinkedIn has just started doing stories like on Instagram or Snapchat, where you might be thinking, actually, I don't want to do a post that kind of lives there forever, but I want to give people a flavour of what I'm doing kind of today. And you can do that, and it's kind of mobile first, so you can use your phone to do a quick video or something and show that just as a snapshot of your day, if you don't want to do like a post on the news feed. So that is kind of my top tips, but I'll just recap it for you, because there was quite a lot of things I said there. So there's 7 things you can do to make you have an all-star profile. Okay. And the kind of stat that we got told when I worked at LinkedIn is, if you have these 7 kind of pieces filled out on your profile, then actually makes yourself 40 times more likely to get viewed above someone else. So that's really great advantage over other people out there. So number 1 is to include your industry and location that you're either working in or want to work in. Number 2 is to make sure you've got your current or latest position on there with a description. So don't just put your job title. It gives you some free text to put a bit in, just like you would on a CV or covering letter, to say what I'm doing, what my kind of duties are, or kind of particular highlights I want to put in. You can even link to YouTube videos or blog posts and kind of all rich photos and other media to really kind of showcase what you do. So item number 3 is to have 2 previous positions listed, because you want to show that you've kind of had some progression. And it might be difficult if you haven't been in work for a while. I think at the moment, lots of people are having issues with how they're working. It's part of the reason for our career club that we're doing right now. So I think employers are expecting that people are going to have gaps in their kind of career history. But you can put what you have been doing in that time to help develop your career, whether that's going on a course or just doing some self-learning for yourself, or anything else, volunteer work. You can put that on your profile as well. So have something that makes it just not your latest, but kind of 2 previous activities, positions, jobs that you've had. And don't worry if there's a gap. Again, you don't have to put every single job that you want on there if you don't think it's relevant. So I used to stack shelves at Sainsbury's. I don't have that on my profile because it's kind of my first job. I didn't have much on my profile. It was on there, but now I've kind of chipped that one off because it's not particularly relevant to my career. Okay, the next thing you want to put is your education. So really important, really easy to do. You can kind of put your grades on there, your start and stop date, and just have that on there. I go back to just GCSEs, and then I did BTEC courses after that. So I have them on there. So yeah, you don't have to put kind of, I don't know, other kind of qualifications if you don't want to. Anything you add on there, it helps to build that picture about you. It doesn't have to be formal kind of education. You can put other training courses that you've been on as well, or certifications. Okay, so number 5 is to list at least 3 skills that you have. So those are the ones where people can just kind of quickly endorse you through it by clicking on the little plus button. So think about, I would put kind of 10 skills, and then you can rank the ones that you think are important, you want to show on your profile so everyone sees them. So I'd think about ones that I want to work in. I wouldn't bother listing. So trying to think of an obscure skill that I might have, but yeah, I don't know. So say I was really good at singing. I'm not really good at singing, but I enjoy a good night at karaoke. But I'm not going to have that as one of my skills on my profile. It's just kind of not relevant. I'd have something that's much more relevant and that I want people to know about me for my career.
Yeah.
So at least 3 of them. Then try to get, for step 6, 50 plus connections. So it sounds like quite a lot at first, but as you start to build up that profile and start using it, start actually commenting on other people's things, then you can quite easily rack up 50, even if it's just starting with maybe kind of college mates, or kind of sometimes your tutor or teachers will want to connect with you, previous people you've worked with, kind of friends of the family. You've got all these people you can connect with just to start building up that there's kind of circles of influence there. And the last one, number 7, is that profile photo. So a really nice, clear head and shoulders shot of yourself that's recent and really kind of reflects that image that you want to portray. Okay, so don't think ultra formal. Just think, this is me. This is what you would expect if I came and worked for you, what I would look like. And that's those 7 things that give you that 40 times kind of factor of being viewed above anyone else on LinkedIn.
Which is a huge number. I don't think I would have thought that those 7 things would have had that big of an influence, but then there were lots of things in there that I would have never have thought of. So thank you, because I think there's some really great tips in there, and I definitely need to put some time in to go away and have a look at mine at some point.
You'll see if you go, I think if you use the phone app or the website, LinkedIn does kind of guide you through, and after you edit one bit, it will say, have you thought about adding this? Have you thought about adding that? So don't worry about kind of remembering everything I said. LinkedIn does guide you on it. Go and have a look at my profile, go and have a look at other people's profiles, see what you like and what you don't like from other people, and then just do that on your own one as well.
I'm sure that when I've been on there recently, it tells me like whether mine is like strong or medium or something, and the things that I can do to make it better. So yeah, I guess it is, they do support you kind of through that process to make sure that you're portraying yourself as best you possibly can.
Yeah. Oh, one last thing actually that's really important. Okay. There are lots of privacy options, because you might not want everyone to see your whole kind of job history or something like that. So it's worth going into your profile, checking what those kind of privacy options are and what's visible, because what you do want is people to be able to find you. So you want them to see your photo and maybe your kind of name and your current position and your headline, but you might not want them to see your whole history until they've made a connection, or you might want to have it all open. It's really kind of up to you, and they've got those privacy controls there. And if you're actually looking for work, then that's a kind of tick box as well to say that I'm actively looking for work, and that will help recruiters reach out to you. You might get a flood of emails straight away, but if a recruiter contacts you on there, you can click through to their profile and see a bit about them, and if you think that's a kind of recruiter you want to bother having a conversation with.
Perfect. Great tips there. So thank you again for your time. Really appreciate that, and thanks for coming to give us your kind of top tips. Just to summarise, the Careers Club is run by volunteers from the Risual Foundation. So what we're currently doing is producing content to support anyone that is currently out of work. And then we're going to be starting to run individual and group sessions with individuals as well throughout the UK. So we're not specific to any particular area. If you want any more information on that, then please go to risualfoundation.org, or you can find us on our various social media channels, which I'm sure Tom will be really pleased to hear. So thank you so much, Tom.
That's all right. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Charlotte. Good luck, everyone.